Hey guys, I'm back, and this is my 98 Acura Integra that we manual swapped, and I just want to go over the whole build list for y'all here. Just to make things simpler, I wish I knew this list when I started, but we know how it is, digging through Honda Tech for hours and finding yes and no answers. Well, I just learned the hard way, and I want to let y'all know. This project took me a weekend to do. I started Friday around 3 p.m., worked on it about 9 hours on Saturday, worked on it about 7 hours on Sunday, and half of that was by myself. If you have a buddy help you with this, take half the time. This is a good weekend project. Unless it's your daily, maybe I'd set some time aside. But anyways, enough boring junk. Let me actually list off all the parts you need. So the first thing that is really important is you're going to want to get auto to manual mounts. They make an actual auto to manual mount conversion. It's a it's a mount that is actually big. It's kind of a goofy looking mount, but I'm guessing the frame rail mount, the passenger side on these cars, is just slightly different than the manuals. But point being is it's a specialty mount. I actually fabricated my own, and it was kind of a pain to make. Not a big pain, but I'd much rather have a more quality part. But the whole theme of this car is budget, so it was kind of fun. But auto to manual mounts, just buy the kit. They're like 150 bucks, just worth it, just do it. Next up, flywheel bolts and pressure plate bolts. So if you get like a parts car or something, you don't need to worry about this as much, but you're definitely gonna wanna get flywheel bolts and pressure plate bolts for the clutch and pressure plate. The automatic bolts are actually shorter on the flex plate than the manual bolts. You're going to want a flywheel, obviously, whatever flywheel you want. This just has an OEM heavy flywheel. You're going to want a clutch. Again, this just has a eBay XTD stage 2. You're going to want a clutch master cylinder, and you're going to want a clutch line with that. I have an S2000 one off a parts car, that EK, that black EK, if you've been watching my channel. Obviously a slave cylinder, and manual shift linkage. And if I'm missing anything else while I'm editing this video, I'll throw it around here. But that's pretty much all you need. And again, it was a pretty simple swap. You're going to need to do just a little bit of wiring, and I'll show you guys in a moment what you need to do. But it was a pretty simple swap. It just takes time, patience, and a couple extra tools. I assume if you guys are watching this, you have drills with drill bits, punches, maybe chisels. You don't need a welder, but I actually did, well, you do need a welder if you make the mounts, but don't make the mounts, because if they break and you get hurt or you're someone else, it's not my fault. Just buy the mounts. Trust me, it just makes the process way easier. And you're gonna need a T-bracket possibly as well, because the T-bracket in this did not line up nicely, and I had to cowboy it to make it work. But besides that, it is a simple project. It really is. Don't be veered away from it. The hardest part of this whole project, I'd say, was banging out that bump underneath the shift linkage there, and you guys will see later in the video. But enough boring stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe on the channel, trying to grow, and I appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to manual swap my beater Acura Integra. But first I need to clean up the shop, because she's just a pigsty after welding up them floor pans in my truck. But yeah, so we got a GSR trans right here, and we got a clutch and a flywheel as well. Obviously herder. So obviously this is an automatic, but from my 2 minutes of form searching, this should be a pretty easy swap. And this is going to be kind of a tutorial, but I'm just going to skip the BS and go straight to the basics. And obviously I'm going to learn as I go here, so at the end of the video, skip to the end. I'll put a timestamp in the video here. I'll actually add everything you needed, but the list should be pretty simple. And we got to start by popping the hood. Yeah, you know how this goes. There we go. She needs hood pins. Alrighty, y'all, I'm going to get the basics done first here, get the wiring and junk out of the way, and then once I get into more technicals, I'll show you what's up. So just give me a moment here and I'll get all this off for you. Well, just pulled the wheel off, and this is what I got to deal with. So that might have been on there since the car was made. This car has 150,000 miles, but I'll get back to y'all. Well, hope I didn't cook my front wheel bearings, but with enough heat, I got her out. Now our next battle is if this axle's seized in here or not. Fortunate enough for us, she ain't. Okay, so you got to remove this bolt, and then underneath here there's a 10mm nut that you have to remove as well. So let's get right to that. I just bent the tab out of the way here. Now it's letting me back this little 10mm out. And that 10mm acts as the pin. I wish it was that easy on the manuals, but you know, not everything in life is easy, but there we go. Now we got it. Now she's permanently in neutral. So next up, while I'm down here, I'm gonna unbolt the CV axle here. There's bolts, 3 bolts up there. I'll hold the back of this axle on. I just need that to pull the axle out to get out of the way of this transmission. And after that, got to pull off the service plate too here for the Auto Tragic torque converter and whatnot, and flex plate. And then we'll just keep going from there. Well, make sure to put the bolts and covers back on this. The guy that buys this for 50 bucks from you on Facebook Marketplace will be thanking you when all the hardware is there. On second thought, I might wait, because it looks like that cover will hold this plate on. But remember to put that back. Do a guy a favor. Alright, I just unbolted the T-bracket, took the axle, got that unbolted. Now we're underneath here at the shift assembly, so you're going to have to unbolt these 2 guys right here. They look like 10s, but they're rusted out to 11s. You know, Midwest stuff. Then you got these 4 guys right here, and then that should free the shifter assembly up there. I'm a little afraid I might have to drill out these spot welds and get rid of this part yet, but I'm not sure. But this might get in the way of the manual shift linkage, so we'll put a pin in that and try to remember. Alright, next up here, I'm just unbolting the service cover. So you got 10mm there, and I think this is either 17 or a 19. And also we got this little gusset right here that I have to unbolt as well. Alrighty, so I am currently unplugging the reverse light switch. I'll do that off camera. But also undoing all the bolts to the bell housing. Make sure your engine is supported while doing this. Apparently the auto versus the manual starter is different. That was a bear to get to. But anyways, I'll get right back to you guys once I get this all unbolted up. Other things worth noting is unplugging the vehicle speed sensor down here, as well as the transmission hydraulic lines running to the radiator. Sorry I keep cutting out here, but I'm just doing this as I go. I found more plugs here I gotta disconnect, and then this wire also clips to this bracket here, but that's just a part of the automatic transmission stuff. So we'll unplug this and see if I find anything else here, and I'll let you guys know. Can't forget the ground to frame strap too. Make sure to drop the fluid in the trans too, otherwise it's going to get real messy and she's going to scream bloody murder when you pull off the trans and torque converter. Well, torque converter is going to be a mess regardless. Yummy. I thought it'd be darker, honestly, so. While we let the trans drain here, I'm going to unbolt this mount from the frame. You have to be really careful with these bolts. I wouldn't advise hitting them with an impact, because these are actually just like a little stitch, little tack weld to the frame, and they will snap, and then you're gonna hate your life. Trust me, I've been there, and it's actually happened on multiple cars I've had too, not just Hondas. So treat these bolts with care. Almost ready to pop the trans off now, but now we got to take down this kick down cable linkage, or at least I believe that's what it is. But all it is a cable that connects your transmission to your throttle. So just got to undo it from the little spinny boy there and unbolt it here, and the rest is pretty obvious. Alright y'all, just dropping the transmission now. I unbolted it from those upper bolts. Got my floor jack right underneath her here. Slowly dropping her down, and we're gonna pry her right on off. I'll let you know if I bump into any other issues along the way. Alright, so I got her loosened up, so now I'm just gonna carefully remove it from the actual, whatchamacallit. Alright, now she's been carefully removed from the car. And now we can apply a manual transmission the way God intended. Well y'all, so that's a manual starter, and that's an auto starter. And I just tried bolting the auto starter to the manual transmission, and it didn't work, and here's why. The flange size on the auto starter was just slightly bigger, so it wouldn't bolt in. And also, the manual starter actually has a through bolt that goes through the transmission and into the block, while the auto doesn't. These are the auto bolts. I know I got a couple bolts sitting around that will work to actually bolt in the manual starter. But otherwise, you guys, if you are strictly going through this and you don't have any extra bolts, you will need to get a longer secondary bolt to bolt the starter through the transmission and into the block. And remember this guy, don't forget it, put it back on. Next up here, we just got to unbolt these 10 mils from the flex plate to the torque converter, and this is actually pretty easy to turn. I could just turn it by hand. My advice to you is if you're loosening these and it's turning, try and pry like a screwdriver or something maybe in one of these holes, and so as it's turning it'll jam it up, or maybe just leave one of these bolts out and then it'll jam up on the oil pan. But in my case, I just put a socket on it and then I hit it with the hammer and it busts it loose, so that's been working best for me. And lastly here, we just have these 17 millimeter 12-point bolts, and as soon as we get that off, then we just have to reverse engineer everything, but with a manual trans instead of an auto. The battle's halfway over, folks. And so we got the transmission flex plate off here, and if your rear main seal, or in this case just main seal, is leaking, now would be an optimal time to replace it. But in my case, it looks like it's still good, so I'm just gonna throw the manual stuff back on and get her going. Another thing I'd like to add here is the automatic transmission flex plate bolt is a lot smaller than the manual transmission flywheel bolt, so you will need to get a set of these flywheel bolts. And actually, technically, you're supposed to replace your flywheel bolts and clutch bolts every time. I've had good luck with it, but I would advise on replacing them if possible, because you don't want your flywheel flying off when you're sending it and chop off your legs or something, God forbid. But yep, definitely going to need manual flywheel bolts. Alright, I'm torquing the flywheel bolts on, and it was spinning, but I just stuck in a 1/4-inch socket in one of these holes in the back, and that's holding it for me as I tighten it. These are supposed to be torqued to 76 foot-pounds. I'm using an old sacked out Harbor Freight torque wrench, so I'm setting this to 80. And I also put a little bit of Loctite on those bolts as well, just for extra assurance. Just got all the actual pressure plate bolts bolted in. Those are 19 foot-pounds I read online, but I did a little bit more because, again, Pittsburgh torque wrench. And I don't know where my clutch alignment tool went, but I had a random one for an E82 Subaru engine, so I just chopped the end off and it got close enough. You don't need a clutch alignment tool to get these clutches in, but trust me, you are going to suffer hard until you get it to actually line up. Ask me how I know. Well, after much cursing and unfortunately breaking a speed sensor, I got the manual trans in, but it looks like the auto speed sensor is the same, so we'll get that popped in as soon as I get her bolted on up here. One thing I can tell is the auto transmission side bracket is different than the manuals. And the reason I can tell that is because the manual has 3 holes. It's a 3-bolter, and this is just a 2-bolter. So let me go check my inventory in the shed quick and see if I have the right mount. And if not, I'm not afraid I'll make something work. Well, after shopping through my inventory of junk, I actually have a mount that'll work just perfect for this, so pays to be a hoarder sometimes. Well, folks, I'm learning one thing the hard way, and I just cannot get this mount to line up properly. And I found out that these are actually, they make auto to manual mount conversion kits, where it's just the mounts are already the proper size, you know, for the rear T-bracket, that mount, and this mount. Well, this is my daily driver, and I have work off for a few days, and I need to be driving this in a few days, so I'm gonna have to cowboy something for now. But another thing you guys are gonna have to get is actual auto to manual mounts. And only to make matters worse, the T-bracket doesn't line up either, so I'll have to figure out what T-bracket to get, but for now I might be able to cowboy this too. Alright y'all, I'm back with CS Speed Shop, and this mount isn't working right, so we're gonna have to cowboy it a little bit. This is just some cut plumbing pipe, and we're just you know, we're cowboying it. Don't try this. If your engine falls out while you're doing a pull because you copy me, it wasn't my fault. Don't do this.
It's fine.
Don't do it.
You don't. Well, because we got a Hobart welder. And I'm certified.
Say Hallmark?
Hobart.
Hobart.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Hobart. Yeah, it's a Hobart. So we're using flux core here. Now, the nice part about that is you can leave all the grease on there and it'll like kind of weld through it.
I mean, hey, that's what buildings are made of.
It
Flux
holds
core.
this thing on just fine. I mean, that's a really nice booger on there. So
Yep.
We're just gonna go ahead and solid weld it all the way around, and you know, maybe, just really thinking out loud here, we might get some real thin like sheet metal and fill this in too.
Oh yeah,
now,
18 gauge.
If we use 18 gauge structural material, I mean, we'll probably blow about 10 holes through it, but that's fine, because if you got holes in it, that's how you know it's got penetration around it if it's still sticking, so it's fine.
My auto to manual mounts, just do it. Yep, that seems legit. We'll gusset that up and call it good. Do not do this. Also, Hasport, you ain't got nothing on me. Just kidding, please sponsor me. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not proud of that, but it'll work.
I'd be real proud of that. But look at the bluing on there. It's even changing colors. You got some dimes stacked right around in there. It's mint.
Ready for SEMA. All right, got the engine in. I mean, no duh, but we got the mounts in. She feels pretty stout. Next up, we're gonna work on getting the shift linkage installed. So we're gonna have to pull out the automatic shifter and do some wiring and whatnot. And then after that, the clutch master cylinder, and then running that line over to the slave cylinder right there.
All right, so we're removing the interior here. So basically with this piece, hold on, get it in there. Yep, sure.
Yeah, that was
so there's 2 screws here. You gotta pop the little trim piece off, and then there's one there and one right there. I think you can kind of see it. There's 2 also on the other side, and you pull those guys off, all 6 bolts, and then you just pull her back and up.
Sorry.
And then hit them right in the arm, and then you're good. And then up here, you got one there, one on the other side, and I don't know which ones you pulled out
We got
here.
these 2 guys right here. You pull out these little trim pieces around, they just pop on out. That go around the shift linkage, or the auto tragic. And now we're just going to continue discovering here, so we'll get right back with y'all.
So basically, in a nutshell, there's one up here, one back here, one in the front, one on the other side. Trim pieces pop off, and you're dialed.
All right, so there was just a light on the back of this that you just twist and pop out. Pretty simple. And then we're also just taking the shifter off as well. There's just a screw on the side, and then it should actually pop out.
I don't think it wants to pop off.
There's a screw on the side over here too.
Oh, there's one on that side?
Yeah.
There you go. That?
Yeah, and these things are spring loaded, so they just kind of exploded everywhere.
So that,
you know, away she goes, I guess, but just a caution. So we just pulled off this white piece. It just bolts to the side here. Just 2 little 10mm bolts, and we pulled that to the side. But now we'll get to these 4 guys here and start undoing linkages and unplugging connectors and whatnot, and then we can actually drop the automatic transmission shifter cable assembly. Alrighty, so we got everything disconnected. I had to take out the actual dash piece there. Make sure you have this pushed back, otherwise it's an absolute bear to get around the shifting area there. Disconnected right here from the shifting assembly there. And then I also just pulled this pin up here, and it released us, it freed us, it liberated us from these horrible shift cables. Yep, there that goes. And now we have a power glide. So I'm just gonna unbolt this guy out, get it out, and then we'll get the Manuel in. So when I was unbolting this from...
What's going on is that thing's a little stuck, so we're gonna take care of that.
Yeah, so... Yeah.
That do it?
I don't reckon it did. Oh, we're getting somewhere though. See now it's a manual. So the story here is I stripped the nuts on both of these and I can't get it out, and I'd have to take the exhaust off, and I don't feel like doing that. So we're just gonna go on the little bit more forceful approach on getting this bugger out, you know. So already all underneath the car again. I'm just getting the linkage bolted up here. We will have to drill holes, but I'm just gonna get it up there and referenced and drill. It's not rocket science, it's pretty simple. There's a little give, but unfortunately where the shift cables came out, that piece of metal is getting in the way. So I'm gonna go topside and drill out these spot welds and just knock this piece of auto tragic junk out. Alrighty, now I'm just unbolting this block off plate here for the automatic transmission to put in the manual transmission slave cylinder. It's real simple. There's just 2 bolts there and there. You're going to want to get a manual brake pedal too.
Otherwise, your clutch pedals are going to be really close to your brake pedal, and I'll show you why in just a moment. And this is on the block off plate. This is for the interlock control. You can see because of the way it is. So just take this and go throw it in your automatic transmission parts pile and forget it. Alrighty, just got the clutch pedal installed. I had ripped some insulation off to make it work, but then I later found out I didn't have to do that. So I've heard of folks that had to do that though, so it might be a 50-50, but it's real easy to cut out and then just rip out with your hands. This is why you should use a manual brake pedal, because the automatic brake pedal is really close. In fact, this was actually closer. I just bent this over to the left, but you really should get a manual brake pedal. Otherwise, that's a safety hazard when you're banging gears. Alrighty, we're just getting fluid in it. I just got the master cylinder installed, or the clutch master, and we just bled the line. We got pressure. CS Speed Shop's working on his distance game, and we should be good. And by done, I mean we still have to do the wiring, but that should be pretty easy, and I'll show y'all in just a moment here. Alrighty, I have the clutch pedal bypass down there, and I'll get into more of that later. Oh. We gotta wire up the starter, that'd probably help. Alright, I figured that was just a bad ground. Now we're gonna try and start it. Alrighty, y'all, we got her pulled out on the manual transmission. Let's go take her for a test run. She throws like 5 codes though, and they're all automatic transmission related, but that's okay. You don't gotta worry about that. Alrighty guys, here I am the next day driving the car. We drove it a little bit last night, and I got cruise control working, and I got the clutch safety bypassed as well. And I'll show you guys in just a moment how to wire it up. But so far so good. Cruise works perfectly. The mounts hold up, albeit not the greatest. Pretty awesome swap. Alright y'all, back in the shop here. So in order to make your car think, you know, the clutch is depressed in, or the automatic make it think it's in park or whatever, to turn it over, you have to actually bypass these 2 terminals on the bottom of the plug here. And I just use some spades. They don't want to sit in there nicely, so I bent them. You might have to trim them if you have bigger spades, but those are the 2 fat plugs on the bottom. And then for the cruise control here, I took this top right and then 1 in from the bottom left there, and that's the pink and black wire on the back. That's pins 13 and 7. You put them together and they'll make your cruise work. However, if you want to do this properly, you should actually run 1 end to your clutch safety and the other end to the clutch safety wire as well. That way you can actually ensure, because there's 2 switches on the clutch. One's for actually pressing it in for starting, and one's for if you press the clutch and it disables your cruise. Well, I have them both bypassed, which is a safety hazard here. I'm letting you guys know this so I'm not liable if you hurt someone. Because if you don't have your actual cruise control safety wired in, when you press in the clutch, your RPMs are just going to shoot up and it's not automatically going to shut off your cruise. Same right here for your actual clutch safety. So you see I'm not pressing in the clutch here. Forgot my key, but I'm not pressing in the clutch. And car turns over. So definitely some food for thought. If you want to wire up the clutch safety, it's really easy. You just simply attach the 2 wires that come off of the switch there, and you connect them right on in here. And then I'm just going to remove these extra wires and whatnot here too, and put a block off plate there. But that's simple. That's it. That's all you have to do. So I'm going to actually clean this all up, put the trim back in, and get this halfway presentable again. Another thing worth noting while you're here, might as well tighten up your e-brake a little bit. Weren't really needing that when it was an auto, but now it'd be a lot nicer now that you're a manual. Alrighty, now on to the reverse wiring. So all I did here was cut off the top side of the harness and then run my own harness. So I have the sensor side here. I cut off the top side of the Honda harness, and then I had some trailer wiring, which coincidentally was the same color, and then I had to run it through the firewall.
And then all it does is run right through the firewall, right through that rubber grommet. You just have to poke a hole, don't be afraid to do it, and then push down some of the insulation, and then you'll just push this wire right on through. And right here is my connector. I actually opted to take the plug off and cut it off the automatic shifter, and actually just use that to short my wiring here. You remember those shorts we had to do earlier for cruise and for the clutch safety? Well, I just did this. A lot better design that way and a lot safer too. But anyways, so the top two plugs here are going to be your reverse light circuit. So this is like your 12 volts right here, and this goes to your rear lights. So all I do is just ran this wire right on through, connected it on up, and it works perfectly. And let me show you why. Car is on, shifter's in reverse. We got reverse lights. Now I'll take it out. She's in neutral. And no reverse lights. Here she is with the interior back in. Yeah, this part is kind of awkward. I was going to use like a Crown Royal bag because I had one sitting around, you know, like what all the racers do, and fill this in, but it turned out it wasn't big enough, so I'm just going to have to deal with that. I welded a plate of steel down there, and I just tucked a rag around the shift linkage, so we'll have to figure that out another time. But this will be a little open on you. Well, here I am driving again at night. But yeah, I'll say this is a super easy swap. I got everything working properly. The only codes I got are for the automatic transmission, but with my future plans, that won't be a problem much longer. I mean, there's a reason I swapped a manual in here for a reason. Power, hint, hint. But anyways, guys, I hope this video helped a lot. If you got any questions, just ask in the comments below, and I'll try to do anything I can to help y'all out. And you guys have a great rest of your day or night.